Welcome to the Tales Lab. I hope you enjoy this story. Let's begin. The Tokyo skyline faded behind me as the plane touched down at JFK. Eyes stretched, working out the kinks from the long flight. Despite the exhaustion seeping into my bones, a spark of excitement flickered in my chest. I patted my jacket pocket, feeling the small, velvet box nestled inside. Vanessa would love it. As I navigated through customs, my mind drifted to the merger I just closed. Months of preparation, sleepless nights, and relentless negotiation had finally paid off. The partners would be pleased. But right now, all I wanted was to see my wife's face light up when she saw our anniversary gift. The cab ride home felt interminable. New York traffic, always a nightmare, seemed determined to test my patience today. I leaned forward, addressing the driver. "Any chance we can take a shortcut?" He grunted, gesturing at the sea of red taillights ahead. "In this, you'd have better luck walking, buddy." I sat back, resigned. The vintage watch in my pocket seemed to grow heavier with each passing minute. I'd stumbled upon it in a tiny shop in Ginza, its elegant design immediately reminding me of Vanessa. 10 years of marriage, and she still took my breath away. Finally, our penthouse came into view. I paid the driver and hurried inside, nodding to the doorman as I passed. The elevator ride to the top floor gave me a moment to compose myself. I smoothed my tie, fixed my hair, and practiced my surprised face. Vanessa wasn't expecting me for another day, and I couldn't wait to see her reaction. The elevator doors slid open, and I stepped into the hallway. I inserted my key into the lock as quietly as possible, easing the door open. The scent of Vanessa's favorite candles wafted through the air, and I could hear soft music playing from somewhere inside. "Vanessa?" I called out softly, not wanting to startle her. No response. I moved further into the apartment, my footsteps muffled by the plush carpet. As I approached our bedroom, I heard Vanessa's voice. She was laughing, a sound that usually filled me with joy. But something about it now made me pause. "Oh, Alexander," I heard her say, her voice low and intimate. "Last night was amazing. Marcus is so boring in bed compared to you. I can't wait for our trip next week." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. I gripped the wall for support, my mind refusing to process what I'd just heard. This couldn't be happening. Not Vanessa, not my wife of 10 years. I don't know how long I stood there, frozen in disbelief. Eventually, I heard Vanessa end the call. I retreated to my home office, moving on autopilot. The door clicked shut behind me, and I sank into my chair, the reality of the situation crashing over me in waves. Vanessa, cheating, with Alexander, her boss. My hands shook as I opened my laptop. I pulled up our shared calendar, scrolling through the upcoming events. There it was, starting next week. Marketing retreat 7 days. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. I don't remember much of the rest of that night. I know I didn't confront Vanessa. I know I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, as she slept peacefully beside me. And I know that something inside me hardened, a resolve taking shape that would change the course of our lives forever. The next morning, I went through the motions of our usual routine. I showered, dressed, and met Vanessa in the kitchen. She looked up from her coffee, her smile as radiant as ever. "You're back early," she said, pressing a kiss to my cheek. "How was Tokyo?" I forced a smile, hating how easy it was for her to lie. "Productive. We closed the deal." "That's wonderful, honey," she said, her hand lingering on my arm. "We should celebrate." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Vanessa turned back to the counter, chattering about her day ahead. I half listened, my mind already formulating a plan. "Oh, and don't forget," she said, turning back to me. "I have that marketing retreat next week. It's really important for my career." I met her gaze, searching for any sign of guilt or hesitation. There was none. "Of course," I said. "I remember. A whole week, right?" She nodded, relief flashing across her face so quickly I almost missed it. Yes, a full week. Lots of team-building exercises and strategy sessions. It'll be intense, but I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure you are, I said, my tone neutral. I hope it's productive. Vanessa beamed, oblivious to the storm raging inside me. Thanks, honey. I'm sure it will be. As she left for work, I sat at the kitchen island, turning the vintage watch over my hands. The gift I'd been so excited to give her now felt like a mockery of our marriage. I put it away. My decision made. That afternoon, I made a call to Veronica Reyes, a private investigator whose name I'd gotten from a colleague. Her voice was crisp and professional as she answered. Veronica Reyes speaking. Ms. Reyes. I said, my voice low even though I was alone in the apartment. My name is Marcus Blackwood. I need your services. There was a pause on the other end of the line. What kind of services are we talking about, Mr. Blackwood? I took a deep breath. I need you to surveil my wife during her upcoming business trip. I have reason to believe she's being unfaithful. I see, Veronica said, her tone neutral. Can you provide me with the necessary details? Dates, location, any other relevant information? I gave her everything I knew about Vanessa's upcoming retreat, including a description of Alexander. As I spoke, I felt a strange sense of calm settling over me. This was no longer about emotion. This was about facts, evidence, and justice. I'll need a substantial retainer, Veronica said when I finished. This kind of operation isn't cheap, especially on short notice. Money is no object, I replied. I want everything documented. Photos, videos, audio if possible. Leave no stone unturned. Understood, Mr. Blackwood. I'll send over the contract and payment details shortly. And Mr. Blackwood, yes, I'm sorry you're going through this. I'll do my best to get you the truth. As I hung up, I realized the vintage watch was still in my hand. I looked at it one last time before locking it away in my safe. The time for sentimentality was over. Now, it was time for action. The week of Vanessa's retreat crawled by with agonizing slowness. I threw myself into work, staying late at the office and bringing files home. Anything to keep my mind occupied, to stop myself from imagining what might be happening at that luxury resort. When the envelope from Veronica Reyes finally arrived, I stared at it for a long moment before opening it. Inside, I found dozens of high-quality photos and a USB drive. With shaking hands, I spread the photos across my desk. Vanessa and Alexander, by the pool, at dinner, on the beach, his hand on her waist, her head thrown back in laughter, them kissing passionately outside their villa. Each image felt like a knife twisting in my gut. I inserted the USB drive into my laptop. Audio files filled the screen. I clicked on one at random, and Vanessa's voice filled the room. Oh, Alexander, she purred. You're insatiable. What if someone sees us? Alexander's deep chuckle followed. Let them look. I can't keep my hands off you, Vanessa. You drive me crazy. I slammed the laptop shut, while rising in my throat. The evidence was irrefutable. My wife of 10 years, the woman I built my life with, had been carrying on an affair for God knows how long. I gathered everything into a neat pile on the coffee table. Then I sat in my armchair and waited. The sun had set by the time I heard Vanessa's key in the lock. She entered, humming softly to herself. When she saw me sitting there in the dim light, she jumped. Marcus, you startled me. Why are you sitting in the dark? I reached over and switched on the lamp. How was your retreat, Vanessa? She smiled, setting down her bags. Oh, it was great. Really productive. Lots of team-building exercises and strategy sessions. I think we made some real progress. I nodded, my face impassive. Tell me more about these team-building exercises. They must have been quite intimate. Vanessa's smile faltered for a moment. What do you mean? Instead of answering, I gestured to the pile of evidence on the coffee table. Why don't you take a look? She approached cautiously, her eyes widening as she saw the photos. She picked one up, then another, her face draining of color. Marcus, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I can explain. Can you? I asked, my tone icy. Can you explain why you've been fucking your boss behind my back? Can you explain why you've been lying to my face for months? Vanessa's composure cracked. She fell to her knees beside the coffee table, tears streaming down her face. It's not what it looks like, she pleaded. Really, I said, standing up, because it looks like my wife is a lying, cheating whore. Her head snapped up, shock written across her features. I'd never spoken to her like that before. Hell, I'd never spoken to anyone like that before. But the Marcus she knew was gone, replaced by a man fueled by rage and betrayal. How long? I demanded. Vanessa looked away, her shoulders slumping. 6 months, she whispered. The admission hit me like a physical blow. 6 months. Half a year of deception, of making a fool of me. Why? I asked, my voice raw. Vanessa stood, anger flashing in her eyes. Why? Because you're never here, Marcus. You're always at work, always on your phone, always thinking about the next big case. When was the last time you really looked at me? When was the last time you made me feel wanted? I laughed bitterly. So this is my fault? I've been working my ass off to give us the life you wanted, and this is how you repay me. I never asked for all this, Vanessa shouted, gesturing around our luxurious penthouse. I wanted you, Marcus. I wanted your time, your attention. Alexander gives me that. Along with his dick. I spat. Vanessa recoiled as if I'd slapped her. Then her face hardened. You know what? Yes. Alexander gives me everything you don't. He's passionate, attentive, and he knows how to please a woman. Unlike you. Her words cut deep, but I refuse to show it. Well, I hope he's worth it, because this marriage is over. For a moment, fear flashed across Vanessa's face. Then she lifted her chin defiantly. Fine. You want to end this? Go ahead. But just so you know, Alexander has invited me on an exclusive couples retreat to the Maldives next month. I stared at her, incredulous. Are you serious? After everything that's just happened, you're planning another tryst with him? Vanessa smirked, a cruel edge to her voice I'd never heard before. This is my one chance to impress him with my stretching skills in bed. I'm going and you can't stop me. Something inside me snapped. I stepped closer to her, my voice low and dangerous. If you go on this trip, our marriage is over. Do you understand me? There will be no coming back from this. Vanessa laughed, the sound devoid of any warmth. Oh, Dumbo. It was over months ago when I started dating Alexander. She turned on her heel and walked towards our bedroom. I stood there, rooted to the spot, as I heard her begin to pack. The pet name she'd used, once a term of endearment, now felt like a final twist of the knife. As the sounds of Vanessa's packing faded into the background, I sank back into my armchair. The man I'd been when I walked through that door a week ago was gone. In his place sat someone harder, colder, and utterly determined to make Vanessa and Alexander pay for their betrayal. I pulled out my phone and dialed a familiar number. Derek, it's Marcus. I need a drink and a lawyer. The bar was dimly lit and mostly empty, just the way I liked it. Derek was already there when I arrived, 2 glasses of scotch waiting on the table. One look at my face, and he pushed a glass towards me without a word. I downed half of it in one gulp, welcoming the burn. Derek waited patiently as I gathered my thoughts. Vanessa's been cheating on me. I finally said, my voice flat. With her boss, Alexander. Derek's eyes widened. Shit, Marcus. I'm so sorry. How did you find out? I gave him the abbreviated version, watching as his expression cycled through shock, anger, and disgust. When I finished, he shook his head, looking as shell-shocked as I felt. What are you going to do? He asked. I took another sip of scotch, considering. I'm going to destroy them, I said, surprised by the coldness in my voice. Both of them. Derek leaned back, studying me. Are you sure about this, Marcus? Maybe you should take some time, think things through. Have you considered marriage counseling? I laughed humorlessly. Marriage counseling? Did you miss the part where she's planning another fuckfest with Alexander in the Maldives? No, Derek. This marriage is over. Now it's just a question of how much damage I can do on my way out. Derek nodded slowly. All right, if that's what you want, I'm with you. What's our first move? I spent the next few days in a haze of focused determination. I pored over our prenuptial agreement, identifying loopholes and weaknesses. I gathered every scrap of evidence of Vanessa's infidelity and financial misconduct, building a case that would leave her with nothing. I moved our shared assets, transferring funds to secure accounts and documenting every transaction meticulously. I wasn't about to give Vanessa any ammunition to use against me. As I worked, a memory surfaced. A corporate event months ago. A young executive named Samantha Chun had cornered me by the bar, her eyes darting nervously as she spoke in hushed tones about her suspicions regarding Alexander's business practices. I dismissed her concerns at the time, but now they took on a whole new significance. It took some digging, but I managed to get Samantha's contact information. I sent her a carefully worded email, suggesting a meeting to discuss mutual concerns about organizational integrity. Her response came within the hour, agreeing to meet at a quiet cafe the following afternoon. As I was finalizing my plans, a nagging thought kept resurfacing. I pulled up our shared medical records, a knot forming in my stomach as I scrolled through the files. There it was, confirmation of my suspicion. Vanessa had stopped her birth control 3 months ago. The possibility of pregnancy added a new layer of complexity to my plans. If Vanessa was carrying a child, if it was mine, no. I shook my head, pushing the thought away. I couldn't afford to let sentiment cloud my judgment now. I was about to close the laptop when my phone buzzed with an incoming call. Vanessa's name flashed on the screen. I stared at it for a moment, debating whether to answer. Finally, I swiped to accept the call. Marcus, Vanessa's voice was shaky, uncertain. I need to tell you something. I remained silent, waiting. I'm pregnant, she said, the words hanging in the air between us. My mind raced. Was the child mine or Alexander's? Did it even matter at this point? Congratulations, I said, my voice devoid of emotion. I hope you and Alexander will be very happy together. Marcus, wait, Vanessa pleaded. We need to talk about this. Please. I ended the call without another word. My resolve, momentarily shaken by the news, hardened once more. This changed nothing. If anything, it only made my need for vengeance more urgent. I pulled up my email, confirming my meeting with Samantha for the next day. Then I opened a new message to my contact at the renowned private investigation firm. I need everything you can find on Alexander Peterson, I wrote. Financial records, business dealings, personal life. Leave no stone unturned. As I hit send, a smile spread across my face. Vanessa and Alexander had no idea what was coming. They thought they'd won, that they had successfully pulled the wool over my eyes. But their victory was about to turn to ashes in their mouths. I leaned back in my chair, my mind already racing with possibilities. The pregnancy complicated things, but it didn't change my ultimate goal. If anything, it made me more determined to secure a future where I could protect my child from Vanessa's manipulations and Alexander's influence. A knock at my office door interrupted my thoughts. It was Derek, his face a mask of concern. Marcus, he said, stepping inside. I've been thinking about what you told me. Are you absolutely sure this is the path you want to take? I fixed him with a hard stare. Derek, I appreciate your concern, but my mind is made up. Vanessa and Alexander chose this path when they decided to betray me. Now they'll face the consequences. Derek nodded slowly. All right, I just wanted to make sure. You know I've got your back, no matter what. I know, I said, my voice softening slightly. And I appreciate it. I'm going to need all the support I can get in the coming weeks. As Derek left, I turned back to my computer. I had one more piece of business to attend to before meeting Samantha Chin tomorrow. I pulled up the contact information for Olivia Ramirez, a divorce attorney known for her aggressive tactics and take-no-prisoners approach. Her reputation preceded her, and I knew she was exactly what I needed to ensure Vanessa wouldn't walk away with a scent she didn't deserve. The call was brief and to the point. Olivia agreed to take my case, her voice sharp with anticipation when I outlined the basics of the situation. We set up a meeting for later in the week to go over the details and formulate our strategy. The pieces were falling into place. Vanessa and Alexander thought they were so clever, so untouchable. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. I spent the rest of the evening preparing for my meeting with Samantha Chun. I reviewed everything I knew about Alexander's business practices, making notes on potential areas of concern. If Samantha's suspicions were correct, this could be the key to bringing Alexander down not just personally, but professionally as well. As I worked, I couldn't help but reflect on how much had changed in just a few short days. The man I'd been, the man who'd rushed home with a vintage watch and dreams of surprising his wife, seemed like a stranger now. In his place was someone harder, colder, someone who wouldn't rest until justice was served. Part of me wondered if I should feel guilty about the path I was choosing. Shouldn't I be more devastated? Shouldn't I be fighting harder to save my marriage? But then I remembered Vanessa's cruel laughter, her callous disregard for our vows, for the life we'd built together. I remembered Alexander's smug face in those photos, his hands on my wife's body, and any hint of guilt or hesitation evaporated, replaced by a burning determination to see this through to the end. As the night wore on, I finalized my plans for the coming days. Meeting with Samantha Chun, consultations with Olivia Ramirez, gathering more evidence, each step bringing me closer to my ultimate goal, the complete and utter destruction of Vanessa and Alexander's world. Finally, exhausted but satisfied with my progress, I headed to bed. As I lay there in the dark, sleep eluding me, I allowed myself one moment of weakness. I reached out to Vanessa's side of the bed, feeling the cool emptiness where she should have been. But instead of sadness, I felt only resolve. Vanessa had made her choice. Now it was time for me to make mine, and I chose vengeance. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. Samantha Chun would be the first domino to fall in my carefully constructed plan. And once it started, there would be no stopping the cascade of consequences that would rain down on Vanessa and Alexander. I sat in the quiet cafe, my fingers drumming an impatient rhythm on the table. The smell of fresh coffee and pastries filled the air, a stark contrast to the bitter taste of betrayal that lingered in my mouth. As I waited for Samantha Chun to arrive, I rehearsed my approach in my head. This meeting was crucial to my plans, and I couldn't afford any missteps. The bell above the door chimed, and Samantha walked in. Her eyes scanned the room before landing on me. I stood, extending my hand. "Miss Chun, thank you for meeting me." She shook my hand firmly. "Mr. Blackwood, I must admit I was intrigued by your email." We sat down, and I wasted no time getting to the point. "I'll be direct, Ms. Chun. I have reason to believe that Alexander Peterson is engaged in unethical business practices. I was hoping you might have some insights." Samantha's eyes widened slightly, but she quickly composed herself. "That's a serious accusation, Mr. Blackwood. What makes you think this?" I leaned forward, lowering my voice. "Let's just say I've come across some concerning information, but I need hard evidence. That's where you come in." For the next hour, we talked in hushed tones. I shared my suspicions, carefully omitting any mention of the affair. Samantha, in turn, revealed her own concerns about Alexander's frequent off-the-books meetings and unexplained expenses. "I've always felt something was off," she confided, "but I never had enough proof to act on it." I nodded, a plan forming in my mind. What if we worked together? I can provide legal advice and guidance, and you can dig deeper into the company's finances." Samantha considered this for a moment. "It's risky. If Alexander catches wind of what we're doing." "He won't," I assured her. "We'll be careful and think of the potential impact. If we can expose any wrongdoing, it could save the company from a major scandal down the line." Finally, she nodded. "All right, I'm in. Where do we start?" Over the next few weeks, Samantha proved to be an invaluable ally. She meticulously gathered evidence of Alexander's questionable dealings, uncovering a pattern of insider trading and client information leaks that he had been using to manipulate market trends. We met regularly, always in different locations to avoid suspicion. I guided her through the legal implications of each piece of evidence, ensuring that everything was properly documented and admissible in court if it came to that. As we worked, I couldn't help but admire Samantha's dedication and sharp mind. She was relentless in her pursuit of the truth, often working late into the night to follow leads and analyze financial records. Our efforts paid off when Samantha discovered a crucial piece of information just days before a major merger was set to take place. She called me, her voice tight with excitement. "Marcus, I've got it. Irrefutable proof of Alexander's insider trading. He's been using confidential information to make personal investments ahead of major company announcements." "Excellent work, Samantha. Now, here's what we're going to do." The day of the board meeting arrived. I watched from the sidelines as Samantha entered the boardroom, her head held high. Alexander was already there, looking smug as he prepared to present his strategy for the merger. As the meeting progressed, I could see Alexander growing more and more confident. He clearly thought he had everything under control. Little did he know, his world was about to come crashing down. When it was Samantha's turn to speak, she stood calmly, her voice steady. "Before we proceed with Mr. Peterson's proposal, I have some information that the board needs to consider." She laid out the evidence we had gathered, presenting alternative strategies that were not only more ethical but promised higher returns. The board members listened intently, their expressions shifting from surprise to concern to outrage. Alexander's face went pale as he realized what was happening. He tried to interject, to discredit Samantha, but his arguments fell flat in the face of the overwhelming evidence. As the meeting adjourned, with the board calling for an immediate investigation into Alexander's activities, I slipped away unnoticed. My part in this particular act was done, but the play was far from over. Later that evening, I received a text from Samantha. It worked. "Alexander's been suspended pending a full investigation. The board wants me to take over as interim CEO." I allowed myself a small smile of satisfaction. Phase 1 of my plan was complete. Alexander's professional life was in shambles, and soon his personal life would follow suit. Speaking of which, it was time to deal with Vanessa. I stood in our now-empty penthouse, surveying the space that had once been filled with memories of a life I thought was perfect. How naive I had been. I placed a thick envelope containing the divorce papers and incriminating photos on the kitchen counter, where Vanessa would be sure to see it. As I turned to leave, I caught sight of a framed photo of us on our wedding day. Without hesitation, I knocked it face down. That life was over. I had a new purpose now. Over the next few days, I kept tabs on Vanessa through my various sources. As expected, she had run straight to Alexander when she found the apartment empty and her access to our joint accounts revoked. I imagined their conversation at the upscale restaurant where they often met. Vanessa, tearful and desperate, confiding in Alexander about the pregnancy, and Alexander, his initial joy quickly turning to concern as he realized the complications this could bring to their carefully constructed affair. Through my hospital connections, I learned that Vanessa had scheduled a series of prenatal appointments. It was time to add another layer to my plan. I arranged for information about non-invasive prenatal paternity tests to be sent to Vanessa anonymously. The seed of doubt I was planting would create tension between her and Alexander, further destabilizing their relationship. As the days passed, Reports from my sources indicated growing friction between Vanessa and Alexander. He had begun pressuring her to consider terminating the pregnancy, citing their complicated situation and the potential impact on their careers. I received a particularly interesting update one evening. Vanessa and Alexander had been overheard having a heated argument at a restaurant. "You can't seriously be considering keeping it," Alexander had hissed. "Think about the scandal if it turns out to be Marcus's. Think about what it could do to our careers." Vanessa had fired back, her voice trembling with anger and hurt. "Is that all you care about? Your precious career? What about us? What about our future?" Alexander's response had been cold. "There is no us if this blows up in our faces. Be smart, Vanessa. You know what you need to do." I couldn't help but feel a satisfaction. Alexander was showing his true colors, and Vanessa was finally seeing the man she had thrown away our marriage for. A week later, I received confirmation that Vanessa had decided to keep the baby and get the paternity test. It was a wrinkle in my plans, but not an insurmountable one. In fact, it could work to my advantage in the long run. As I sat in my new apartment, reviewing the latest reports from my investigators, I allowed myself a moment of reflection. The Marcus of a few months ago would have been devastated by all of this. He would have been torn apart by the thought of Vanessa carrying his child, of the family they could have had. But that Marcus was gone. In his place was a man who saw this pregnancy for what it was: leverage. Whether the child was mine or Alexander's, it would play a crucial role in the final act of my revenge. I picked up my phone and dialed my lawyer. "It's time to file for divorce," I said, my voice cold and determined. "And I want to push for full custody of the child, pending paternity confirmation." As I hung up, I felt a sense of calm settle over me. The pieces were falling into place. Vanessa and Alexander had no idea what was coming for them. They thought they were dealing with the man they had so easily deceived and discarded. The day I filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences and emotional distress, felt like the beginning of the end. I knew the news would send shockwaves through our social circle and Vanessa's workplace. That was precisely the point. My lawyer, a shark in a tailored suit, presented our case with ruthless efficiency. "Mr. Blackwood is seeking full custody of the unborn child, pending paternity confirmation," she stated, her voice echoing through the courtroom. "Given the circumstances of Mrs. Blackwood's infidelity and her involvement in ongoing corporate investigations, we believe this is in the best interest of the child." I watched Vanessa's face crumple as the reality of her situation sank in. She turned to her own attorney, Olivia Ramirez, a woman known for her aggressive tactics. I had anticipated this move and was prepared for whatever they might throw at me. Over the next few weeks, Olivia launched a smear campaign against me, leaking stories to the press about alleged controlling behavior and emotional manipulation. I remained calm and collected, letting my evidence speak for itself. "Mr. Blackwood, how do you respond to these allegations of emotional abuse?" a reporter shouted as I left the courthouse one day. I paused, turning to face the cameras. "I trust in the legal system to uncover the truth," I said, my voice steady. "I have nothing to hide." Behind the scenes, I worked tirelessly with my legal team, preparing for the pivotal court session that would determine the course of our divorce and custody battle. The day arrived, and the courtroom was packed with reporters and curious onlookers. Vanessa sat on the other side of the room, looking pale and drawn. For a moment, I felt a flicker of something, not quite regret, but a remembrance of the love we once shared. I squashed it ruthlessly. There was no room for sentimentality in this war. My lawyer presented our case methodically, laying out the evidence of Vanessa's infidelity. The private investigator's testimony was particularly damning, describing in detail the trysts he had documented between Vanessa and Alexander. Then came the financial records. "Your Honor," my lawyer said, "these documents show Mrs. Blackwood's extravagant spending on gifts for Mr. Peterson, using joint funds. This is a clear violation of their prenuptial agreement." I watched as Vanessa's face went from shock to anger to despair. She leaned over to whisper furiously to Olivia, who looked increasingly frustrated. The final blow came when we played the audio recording of Vanessa laughing about fooling me. The courtroom fell silent as her cruel words echoed through the room. "Oh, Alexander, Marcus is such a fool. He actually believes I'm on a business trip right now." I saw several people in the gallery shake their heads in disgust. Even the judge's impassive mask slipped for a moment, revealing a flash of disapproval. As the session concluded, I felt a sense of satisfaction. Public opinion was shifting in my favor, and I could see the fear in Vanessa's eyes as she realized how thoroughly I had outmaneuvered her. Outside the courthouse, I spotted Alexander lurking near the parking lot. Our eyes met for a moment, and I saw a mixture of anger and fear in his gaze. Good. He was starting to understand the gravity of his situation. Later that evening, as I sat in my study reviewing the day's events, I received a call from Samantha. "Marcus," she said, her voice tight with excitement. "You won't believe what I've uncovered about Alexander's business dealings. This goes way beyond what we initially thought." I leaned forward, my interest piqued. "Tell me everything." As Samantha laid out the details of Alexander's complex scheme involving shell companies and offshore accounts, I felt the final pieces of my plan falling into place. The corporate takedown and the legal battle were converging, creating a perfect storm that would sweep away everything Vanessa and Alexander had built on their web of lies and betrayal. "Excellent work, Samantha," I said as she finished her report. "I think it's time we bring this information to the board. Are you ready for the endgame?" Her response was immediate and resolute. "Absolutely. Let's take him down." As I hung up, I allowed myself a small smile. The reckoning was at hand, and I would show no mercy. The boardroom buzzed with tension as I took my seat among the other executives. Alexander stood at the front, his usual confidence noticeably diminished as he prepared to present his strategy for the upcoming year. Little did he know, this would be his last stand. Samantha caught my eye from across the room, giving a barely perceptible nod. We were ready. As Alexander droned on about projected growth and market expansions, I could see the board members shifting restlessly. They knew something was coming. The rumors of impropriety had been impossible to contain entirely. Finally, the chairman spoke up. "Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Now, I believe Ms. Chun has some additional information to present." Samantha stood, her posture radiating calm authority. "Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm afraid I have some disturbing information that the board needs to be made aware of immediately." She launched into her presentation, methodically laying out the evidence we had gathered. Shell companies, offshore accounts, tax evasion, insider trading, it was all there, backed by irrefutable documentation. I watched Alexander's face as the magnitude of his exposure became clear. His complexion paled, then flushed with anger as he realized he'd been outmaneuvered. "This is preposterous," he sputtered, interrupting Samantha. "These are baseless accusations. I demand to know where the so-called evidence came from." The chairman silenced him with a raised hand. "Mr. Peterson, you'll have your chance to respond. For now, let's hear Ms. Chun out." As Samantha continued, detailing the extent of Alexander's fraudulent activities, I could see the shock and disgust on the faces of the other board members. This was more than just creative accounting or minor indiscretions. This was a systematic defrauding of the company and its shareholders. When Samantha finished, the room erupted into chaos. Board members shouted questions and demanded immediate action. Alexander stood alone at the front, his carefully constructed world crumbling around him. In a desperate move, he pointed at Vanessa, who had been sitting quietly in the back as part of the marketing team. "She knew," he shouted. "Vanessa was aware of everything. She benefited from these transactions too." All eyes turned to Vanessa, who looked like a deer caught in headlights. I saw something break in her eyes, at that moment the last vestiges of whatever feelings she had for Alexander shattered by his betrayal. What happened next, I couldn't have planned better myself. Vanessa stood, her voice shaking but determined. "I'd like to make a statement," she said. The room fell silent as Vanessa began to speak. She confirmed her knowledge of some of Alexander's activities, but claimed she had been coerced and manipulated. Then, in a move that surprised even me, she offered to testify against Alexander in exchange for immunity. "I have information," she said, her eyes darting between Alexander and the board members. "Details about fraudulent practices that even Miss Chun hasn't uncovered." The board chairman quickly called for an emergency executive session. As security escorted Alexander out, his face a mask of rage and disbelief, I caught Vanessa's eye. For a moment, I saw a flicker of the woman I had once loved lost, desperate, but with a spark of the determination that had first attracted me to her. I felt no sympathy. She had made her choices, and now she would face the consequences. As the dust settled, Samantha was named interim CEO, tasked with steering the company through the impending storm. I offered my services as legal counsel, which the board gratefully accepted. Later that evening, as Samantha and I debriefed in her new office, she turned to me with a questioning look. "Marcus," she said hesitantly, "I can't help but feel there's more to this than just corporate wrongdoing. Your involvement, it seems personal." I met her gaze steadily. "Let's just say I had my reasons for wanting to see justice done. Alexander and Vanessa, they took something from me. I'm simply ensuring they face the consequences of their actions." Samantha nodded slowly, seeming to accept this. "Well, whatever your reasons, I'm glad we worked together. We've saved this company from disaster." Phase 2 of my plan was complete. Alexander's professional life was in ruins, and Vanessa was scrambling to save herself from the wreckage. But it wasn't over yet. There was still the matter of the divorce proceedings and the unborn child. And as I drove home, my phone buzzed with a message that would add one final, unexpected twist to my carefully orchestrated revenge. It was from Vanessa. "Paternity test results are in. The baby is yours. We need to talk." I allowed myself a cold smile. Let her think this changed anything. She was about to learn that the man she had betrayed was long gone, replaced by someone who wouldn't be swayed by sentiment or manipulation. I didn't respond to her message immediately. Instead, I poured myself a glass of scotch and stood by the window of my new apartment, looking out over the city lights. The paternity confirmation was a significant development, but it didn't change my ultimate goal. If anything, it strengthened my resolve to ensure that my child would be raised away from Vanessa's toxic influence. After careful consideration, I typed out a reply. "I'll have my lawyer contact you to discuss arrangements. Do not attempt to contact me directly again." I could almost feel Vanessa's desperation through the phone as a flurry of messages followed, begging for a chance to talk, to explain, to make things right. I ignored them all, my mind already racing with the implications of this new information. The next morning, I met with my lawyer to adjust our strategy. "We'll use this to strengthen our case for full custody," I told her. Vanessa's involvement in Alexander's schemes, combined with her erratic behavior during the affair, makes her an unfit mother. My lawyer nodded, a predatory gleam in her eye. "We'll paint a picture of a woman so consumed by ambition and lust that she was willing to risk everything, including the well-being of her unborn child. The judge will have no choice but to rule in your favor." As we finalized our approach, I couldn't help but reflect on how far I'd come. The man I was just months ago would have been overjoyed at the news of impending fatherhood, might have even considered reconciliation. But that man was dead, killed by Vanessa's betrayal and my own thirst for justice. The final pieces of my plan were falling into place. Alexander was facing criminal charges, his reputation and career in tatters. Vanessa was isolated, her professional and personal life in ruins. And I was poised to emerge from this ordeal not just victorious, but with a clean slate and a chance to shape a new life on my own terms. As I left my lawyer's office, I received a call from Samantha. "Marcus," she said, her voice tight with excitement, "the board has officially named me CEO. They want you to stay on as chief legal counsel. We're going to rebuild this company, make it stronger and more ethical than ever." I felt a surge of satisfaction. Not only had I achieved my revenge, but I positioned myself for a new chapter of professional success. Congratulations, Samantha, I replied. I look forward to working with you to reshape the company's future. That evening, as I sat in my study reviewing the final divorce papers, I allowed myself a moment of reflection. The journey had been long and painful, but I had emerged stronger, more focused, and utterly unencumbered by the weaknesses of my former self. Vanessa and Alexander had underestimated me, had thought they could discard me without consequences. They were about to learn the true cost of their betrayal. And as for me, I was ready to embrace my new role as a single father and corporate power player, leaving behind the ashes of my old life without a single regret. The stage was set for the final act of this drama. Let Vanessa think the paternity test would change things. Let her cling to the hope of reconciliation or a favorable settlement. I would show her, Alexander, and the world that Marcus Blackwood was not a man to be trifled with. The reckoning was at hand, and I would savor every moment of it. I arrived at our old favorite cafe, a place that once held fond memories but now felt as foreign as Vanessa herself. The familiar scent of coffee and pastries did nothing to soften my resolve. I spotted Vanessa instantly, her fingers nervously tapping the table, her eyes darting around the room. As I approached, she stood abruptly, her face a mixture of hope and fear. Marcus, thank you for coming. I cut her off with a raised hand, taking my seat. You said you had something to tell me, so tell me. Vanessa took a deep breath, pulling out an envelope from her purse. The paternity test results. The baby, it's yours, Marcus. I kept my face impassive, even as my mind raced with the implications. Vanessa, mistaking my silence for shock, pressed on. I know I've made terrible mistakes, but this changes everything, doesn't it? We can work things out for the sake of our child. We could be a family. I let her words hang in the air for a moment before responding. And what makes you think I'd want that, Vanessa? Her face fell. But it's your child. Our child. Surely you want to be part of its life. Oh, I intend to be, I said, my voice cold. But you seem to be under the mistaken impression that this news changes anything between us. Vanessa's eyes widened. How can you say that? This is our baby we're talking about. I leaned forward, my gaze boring into hers. Let me be clear, Vanessa. I'm glad to know about my child, but your betrayal goes far beyond the affair. You violated every principle of trust, respect, and shared values that our marriage was built on. A baby doesn't change that. Tears welled up in Vanessa's eyes. Please, Marcus, I know I hurt you, but I've changed. I've realized what's truly important. Give me another chance, for our child's sake. I almost laughed at the desperation in her voice. Another chance? To do what? Exactly? To lie to me again? To make a fool of me while you sneak around with your boss? Vanessa's demeanor suddenly shifted, her tears giving way to anger. Fine. If that's how you want to play it, then I'll fight you every step of the way. I'll go for full custody. You'll never see this child if I have anything to say about it. I allowed myself a small, cold smile. I was hoping you'd say that. Reaching into my briefcase, I pulled out a thick folder and placed it on the table. You see, Vanessa, I've been preparing for this moment. In this dossier, you'll find detailed accounts of your erratic behavior over the past months, your involvement in Alexander's fraudulent schemes, statements from your colleagues about your unstable work performance. Oh, and let's not forget the audio recordings of you laughing about your infidelity. Vanessa's face paled as she flipped through the documents. How did you? This is invasion of privacy. No, Vanessa. This is protecting my interests and the interests of my child. Given your current legal troubles and potential criminal charges, I'm quite confident the court will rule in my favor regarding custody. Vanessa slumped in her chair, the fight draining out of her. How did you become so cold, Marcus? This isn't you. I stood, gathering my things. You're right. This isn't the man you married. That man died the day you laughed about the end of our marriage. You taught me a valuable lesson, Vanessa. Never again will I be weak enough to let someone like you into my life. As I turned to leave, Vanessa called out, her voice breaking. Marcus, please. I'm sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen. I paused, looking back at her one last time. But it did happen, Vanessa, and now we all have to live with the consequences. Walking out of the cafe, I felt no remorse, no second thoughts. The woman I had once loved was now nothing more than an obstacle to overcome in my quest for justice and a new life. And I would let nothing, not even the impending birth of my child, stand in my way. The news of Alexander's suspension and the ongoing investigation spread through the business world like wildfire. I sat in my new office at the company, now serving as chief legal counsel, watching the stock ticker scroll across my computer screen. The company's value had taken a significant hit, but I knew it was only temporary. Samantha burst into my office, her face flushed with a mixture of stress and excitement. Marcus, we need to get ahead of this. The press is having a field day, and investors are panicking. I nodded, already pulling up the statement we had prepared. Let's call a press conference. We'll emphasize the company's commitment to transparency and ethical business practices. Highlight your appointment as CEO and the board's swift action in removing Alexander. As we worked to stabilize the situation, more details of Alexander's crimes came to light. The scope of his misdeeds was staggering. A sophisticated price-fixing scheme with competitors, insider trading based on stolen confidential information, and corporate espionage that reached into the highest levels of rival companies. I couldn't help but feel a satisfaction as I watched Alexander's carefully constructed world crumble. His reputation was in tatters, his career destroyed. It was everything I had hoped for and more. One afternoon, as Samantha and I were reviewing the latest findings, she turned to me with a quizzical look. Marcus, I can't help but wonder, how did you know where to look? It's almost as if you had inside information. I met her gaze steadily. Let's just say I had my suspicions about Alexander for a while. When the opportunity arose to investigate, I took it. Samantha nodded slowly, seeming to accept this. Well, whatever your methods, I'm grateful. You've saved this company from disaster. As the days passed, I kept tabs on Vanessa through my network of informants. She was struggling, unable to find work due to her association with Alexander and the scandal. Her fall from grace was spectacular, from high-powered executive to a junior copywriter at a small agency. I felt no pity for her. She had made her choices, and now she was facing the consequences. One evening, as I was preparing to leave the office, I received an unexpected call. It was Alexander, Blackwood. His voice was rough, desperate. We need to talk. I considered hanging up, but decided to hear him out. I'm listening. Look, I know you hate me, and I don't blame you, but we need to work together on this. If we align our stories, create some reasonable doubt, we might be able to salvage something. I laughed, the sound cold and humorless. You must be truly desperate to think I'd ever consider helping you, Alexander. Think about it, Marcus, he pleaded. We could both come out of this on top. I have dirt on people you wouldn't believe. We could use it to our advantage. Goodbye, Alexander, I said, ending the call. I sat back in my chair, a plan forming in my mind. I dialed Vanessa's number, knowing she would jump at any chance to speak with me. Marcus, her voice was hopeful. What is it? Vanessa, I need you to listen carefully. Alexander just called me, trying to make a deal. I want you to reach out to him, pretend you're willing to work with him, record everything he says. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Why should I help you? Because if you do this, I'll consider allowing you more visitation rights with our child once it's born. If you don't, well, I'm sure the court would be interested to hear about your continued association with a man under federal investigation. Vanessa's voice hardened. You're blackmailing me. I prefer to think of it as negotiating. Do we have a deal? Another pause, then a resigned sigh. Fine, I'll do it. As I hung up, I felt a surge of satisfaction. The final nails were being hammered into Alexander's coffin, and Vanessa was unwittingly helping me do it. The next day, Vanessa delivered the recorded conversation to my office. Alexander had incriminated himself further, detailing additional crimes and attempting to concoct a false narrative. I wasted no time in turning the evidence over to the authorities. Within hours, Alexander was taken into custody, facing multiple federal charges. As I watched the news coverage of Alexander being led away in handcuffs, I allowed myself a moment of reflection. My revenge was nearly complete. Alexander's life was in ruins. Vanessa was isolated and desperate, and I was poised to emerge from this ordeal stronger than ever. The man I had been a year ago would have felt conflicted about the pain I had caused. But that man was gone. In his place stood someone who understood that in this world, you either took what you wanted or watched others take it from you. I had chosen to take control of my destiny, to shape the narrative of my life on my own terms. And I regretted nothing. The day of the final divorce hearing arrived, bringing with it a palpable sense of anticipation. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters and curious onlookers, all eager to witness the conclusion of what had become a sensational case. I strode into the courtroom, my face a mask of calm determination. Vanessa was already there, seated beside her lawyer, Olivia Ramirez. She looked pale and drawn, the strain of the past months evident in the dark circles under her eyes. As the proceedings began, Olivia launched into her opening statement, painting Vanessa as a victim of circumstance and manipulation. "Your Honor," Olivia said, her voice dripping with manufactured sympathy, "Mrs. Blackwood was a victim of intense workplace pressure and a husband too consumed with his career to notice her emotional needs. Her affair was a cry for help, a desperate attempt to find a connection she was missing at home." I had to stifle a laugh at the audacity of her claims. My lawyer, however, remained stoic, waiting patiently for her turn to present our case. When it was our turn, my lawyer stood, her posture radiating confidence. "Your Honor, we intend to show that Mrs. Blackwood's actions were not those of a victim, but of a willing and enthusiastic participant in both her affair and Mr. Peterson's illegal business activities." She proceeded to lay out our evidence methodically. Emails detailing Vanessa's eager participation in the affair. Financial records showing her lavish spending on gifts for Alexander using our joint funds. Testimony from colleagues about Vanessa boasting of her conquests. But the coup de grace came in the form of an audio recording. The courtroom fell silent as Vanessa's voice, filled with cruel amusement, filled the room. "Oh, Alexander, Marcus is such a fool. He actually believes I'm on a business trip right now. If only he knew what we were really up to." I watched as the color drained from Vanessa's face. She turned to Olivia, whispering frantically, but the damage was done. Even the judge's impassive mask slipped for a moment, revealing a flash of disgust. As the recording ended, my lawyer turned to the judge. "Your Honor, we have one more witness we'd like to call, Alexander Peterson." A murmur ran through the courtroom as Alexander was led in, looking haggard in his prison jumpsuit. Vanessa's eyes widened in shock, and I could see the moment she realized she had been outmaneuvered. Alexander took the stand, his eyes darting nervously around the room. My lawyer approached him, her voice deceptively gentle. "Mr. Peterson, can you tell the court about Mrs. Blackwood's involvement in your business dealings?" Alexander glanced at Vanessa, then back at my lawyer. Vanessa was fully aware of everything. She often used her relationship with me to gain insider information, which she then used for personal financial gain. Vanessa shot to her feet. "He's lying. I never." The judge banged his gavel. "Mrs. Blackwood, control yourself or you'll be held in contempt." As Alexander continued his testimony, detailing Vanessa's willing participation in his schemes, I watched her crumble. The facade she had so carefully constructed was shattering before her eyes. When the judge finally delivered his ruling, it was everything I had hoped for. The divorce was granted, with the majority of our assets awarded to me. Most importantly, I was granted full custody of our unborn child, with Vanessa allowed only limited supervised visitation. As we left the courtroom, Vanessa tried one last time to appeal to me. "Marcus, please, don't do this. Don't take our child away from me." I looked at her, feeling nothing but cold contempt. "You did this to yourself, Vanessa. Every choice you made led to this moment. Now you get to live with the consequences." Walking away, I felt a sense of finality. The last chapter of my old life was closing, and a new one was about to begin. In the months following the divorce, I threw myself into preparations for fatherhood. The penthouse, once filled with memories of my life with Vanessa, was transformed. I converted the guest room into a nursery, carefully selecting each piece of furniture and decoration. As I stood in the completed room, surrounded by soft colors and plush toys, I felt a mix of emotions I hadn't expected. There was anticipation, certainly, but also a fierce protectiveness. This child, my child, would never know the pain of betrayal that I had experienced. I would make sure of that. Meanwhile, life moved on. Samantha had been officially confirmed as the new CEO, and under her leadership, the company was flourishing. We had implemented sweeping ethical reforms and fostered a new culture of transparency. The scandal that had rocked the corporate world was slowly fading into memory, replaced by stories of our innovative approaches and record-breaking quarters. One evening, as Samantha and I were working late, she turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "You know, Marcus, I never properly thanked you for everything you've done. Without you, none of this would have been possible." I allowed myself a small smile. "We make a good team, Samantha. I'm glad I could help steer the company in the right direction." She hesitated for a moment, then asked, "Have you heard anything about Vanessa or Alexander recently?" I nodded, my expression hardening. Alexander was found guilty on all charges. 15 years in federal prison, plus fines that have essentially bankrupted him. As for Vanessa, last I heard, she was still working that copywriting job. She's been attending mandated therapy sessions as part of her visitation agreement. Samantha shook her head. "It's hard to believe how far they've fallen. Do you ever regret how things turned out?" I met her gaze steadily. "No, they made their choices. I simply ensured they faced the consequences." As Vanessa's due date approached, I received an unexpected call from her. Her voice was hesitant, almost meek. "Marcus, I know I have no right to ask this, but would you be there for the birth? It's your child, too, after all." I considered refusing outright, but realized that my presence could be beneficial in ensuring everything went smoothly with the custody transfer. "Fine, but this changes nothing between us, Vanessa." "Understood." Leaving the hospital with my daughter, I felt a sense of new purpose. The journey that had begun with betrayal and pain had led me here, to this moment of new beginnings. I had lost a wife but gained a daughter. I had been betrayed but had emerged stronger, more successful than ever. As I settled into my new role as a single father, balancing my parental duties with my position as chief legal counsel, I reflected on the path that had brought me here. The man I had been a year ago was gone, replaced by someone harder, colder, but also more capable and determined. Vanessa and Alexander had underestimated me, had thought they could discard me without consequences. They had learned the hard way that Marcus Blackwood was not a man to be trifled with, and as for me, I had everything I wanted: success, respect, and a chance to shape a new life on my own terms. Looking down at my sleeping daughter, I made a silent vow. She would grow up knowing her father's strength, not his weaknesses. She would learn the value of loyalty, integrity, and the importance of standing up for oneself. I would ensure she never fell victim to the kind of betrayal I had experienced. As the weeks passed, I settled into a routine, balancing my role as a father with my professional responsibilities. Samantha and I continued to work closely together, steering the company towards new heights of success. Our professional relationship began to show hints of something deeper. Though we both approached it with caution, our past experiences making us wary of rushing into anything. One evening, as I was preparing to leave the office, I received an unexpected visitor. Derek stood in my doorway, looking hesitant and uncomfortable. "Marcus," he said, his voice strained, "can we talk?" I gestured for him to enter, curious about what could have brought him here after months of minimal contact. Derek sat heavily in the chair across from me, his face a mask of guilt. "I need to tell you something. Something I should have told you a long time ago." As he spoke, revealing his long-held feelings for Vanessa and his role in tipping me off about the affair. I felt a cold anger rising within me. This man, who I had considered my best friend, had harbored such secrets. "I thought I was doing the right thing," Derek finished, his voice barely above a whisper. "But see what it's done to you, how it's changed you. I can't live with the guilt anymore." I sat in silence for a long moment, processing this new betrayal. Then, slowly, I stood and walked to the window, looking out over the city. "You know, Derek," I said, my voice cold and controlled. "A year ago, this revelation might have destroyed me. But now I see it for what it is, another lesson in the importance of self-reliance." I turned back to face him, my expression hard. "You've eased your conscience. Good for you. But our friendship? That ended the moment you decided to play God with my life. Get out of my office. Get out of my life." Derek left without another word, his shoulders slumped in defeat. As the door closed behind him, I felt no regret, no sense of loss, just a renewed conviction in the path I had chosen. 1 year later, I stood in my living room, surrounded by a small gathering of colleagues and acquaintances. My daughter, now a year old, sat in her high chair, happily smashing her tiny fist into her birthday cake. Samantha approached, a warm smile on her face. "She's beautiful, Marcus. You've done an amazing job with her." I nodded, allowing myself a small smile. "She's the best thing in my life. Everything I do for her future." As I looked around the room, I marveled at how much had changed in just 2 years. My professional life was thriving, with the company's reputation fully restored and our ethical reforms becoming a model for the industry. Samantha and I had cautiously begun exploring a personal relationship, both of us acutely aware of the risks but drawn to each other's strength and determination. Vanessa, I had heard, had completed her mandated therapy and was slowly rebuilding her life. She attended her supervised visits with our daughter regularly, and I could see she was making a genuine effort to become a better person. While I would never fully trust her again, I recognized the importance of our daughter having a relationship with her mother. As for Alexander, his cautionary tale had become a case study in business schools across the country. His spectacular fall from grace served as a reminder of the consequences of unchecked greed and betrayal. Derek had taken a sabbatical after our confrontation, and I had heard rumors of his return to the city. While I had no interest in rekindling our friendship, I found that the anger I had once felt towards him had faded into indifference. As the party wound down, and I put my daughter to bed, I allowed myself a moment of reflection. The path that had led me here had been painful, filled with betrayal and heartache, but it had also forged me into a stronger, more resilient version of myself. I looked at my sleeping daughter, feeling a surge of love and protectiveness. She was the unexpected gift that had come from my darkest moments, the reason I had found strength I never knew I possessed. As I closed her nursery door, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The future stretched out before us, full of possibilities, and whatever challenges it might bring, I knew I was ready to face them head-on, with the same determination and ruthlessness that had brought me through the storm. The man I had been 2 years ago was gone, but in his place stood someone stronger, someone who would never again be a victim. And as I looked out over the city lights, I felt no regret for the choices I had made. Every step, every decision had led me to this moment, and I wouldn't change a thing.